All right, so let's talk about fire. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the principles of making a fire, then I will demonstrate some fire starting techniques, and then I'll go outside and do a couple different fire lays, actually light some fires. So why fire? Fire is one of the most useful tools in the wilderness, right? If you have crummy insulating materials, crummy shelter, fire can keep you warm. Fire can cook food. Fire can purify water. Fire can provide light at night, help you with making tools. Fire can provide signaling to be rescued. And not to be overlooked, but very important, fire can provide psychological comfort if you're in the woods at night. It can help your state of mind, help you stay calm and feel safer if you're out in the woods at night. So it's a very important skill to have. When we go camping, go out with the scouts, somebody makes a fire. It's a great for ceremony, for fun. It's also a great opportunity to practice your fire making skills and not to get lazy, right? You can bring lighter fluid and some sort of torch, some sort of butane or propane torch or something, and ignite your logs up really easy. Bring a lot of newspaper or whatever to make it real easy. I recommend not doing that. I recommend starting all your fires, all your recreational fires, as primitively as possible, and either just starting them using a single match or using a ferro rod, or if you got the time, using like a bow drill or something like that. It's possible on a camp out, nobody wants to watch you do the bow drill, right? And part of that is preparation too. So I actually want to talk real quick about that. People I see in like the state parks and stuff, people go camping, and this is fine. The less experienced folks, they want to go camping, so they either like grab a bundle of wood from the convenience store, or they buy the wood on site at the camping place, and they struggle to get their fire going because what they bought was they just bought this package of these big logs, and they can't get those big logs going. So if you are going to do the bow drill or the one match, I recommend thinking about that before you go out on these fun recreational campouts, and do a little preparation, right? Some of these you're going to need small material to get your fire going, and some of these places don't allow you to collect that on site, or it's already been picked over because you're camping in a designated campsite that gets camped at every weekend of year round. So it's okay to bring some stuff ahead of time to go with that bulk firewood that you buy on the way in, so that you're ready and you can light your fire quickly and easily, and still practice your skills. So you don't actually have to go out and practice your gathering skills every time. That's not why your companions are there. They're not there to watch you go out and gather materials. Although that's fun too, and it's good practice too, and it's a great activity for kids. All right, so enough about that. So the fire triangle. You need heat, oxygen, fuel. Very simple, right? Making a fire is a very simple process. Does not mean it's easy. Heat, oxygen, fuel. So lots of ways to make heat, right? You should always have a lighter in your pack. Now, using a lighter every time to start your fire might be kind of a crutch, but you should have it in your pack for an emergency, right? Quick note about lighters: even when this lighter runs out of fuel, it's still useful, right? It still can make sparks and light something else. So if you are in a survival situation, or you're just out in the woods and your lighter's out of fuel, don't throw it away. Or maybe you'll find a discarded lighter sitting around. These little lighters are kind of neat because they're really small and they make a huge flame, but they can leak and run out of fuel. But man, look at that flame. That'll light something. So lighters are great. Lighters are great to have. Matches. Now I think matches is an okay way to practice. Get a single match fire. Everybody should be able to get a single match fire going. I carry matches with me in my fire kit. Single match fire. Here's a way to cheat, right? Get one of these big ones. But really, you should be practicing with something like this, or a paper match, or half of a paper match. I use these big ones for my kids and scouts when teaching them, and I also use them to light my lanterns, so it gets up in there, gets in the mantle. Yeah, match. Know how to light a match, right? When you strike the match, strike it so that you can shelter it from the wind, or if you're worried about this getting things are a little soggy, learn how to light a match by striking at kind of an oblique angle, so you're not dragging the match head off. Sorry about that, had an interruption. Yes, learn how to strike a match, and I like strike anywhere matches because they strike anywhere. I don't like it where I have to have the particular striker on that particular box. Okay, so the problem with matches though is they can get wet. There's ways to keep them dry, keep them in a match case or something, cover them in wax or something. These matches actually can get wet. These are hurricane matches, I think they're called. These are little ones. These are the big ones. I actually never use these and usually don't carry them with me. But you can actually light this and dunk it in a cup of water and pull it out and it'll still be going, which is kind of cool. They need special strikers, so in my kit I have to have the special strikers with them. Just when I've been in difficult fire making situations and I've busted this out thinking it's going to be the savior, I've still failed and gotten my fire going just by being patient and using basic principles of getting my fire going in difficult situations. When you light these, they're like a sparkler, and the sparkler is moving down the match. It's like constantly moving down the match head, and the real strong chemical smell. And I'm not saying they're bad. They're not my thing. So I own them. I play with them sometimes, but I don't keep them in my fire kit. What I do keep in my fire kit is a ferro rod. And my fire kit's not here, so I actually keep a slightly different kind of ferro rod, but there's about an infinite different varieties of ferro rods. Now, ferro rods are not flint and steel. They're ferrocium. And they create a shower of sparks. And there's probably a billion fires in this big monster ferro rod. They don't run out. They just make a shower of sparks. And you can have little ones on your keychain or whatever. So they're pretty awesome. But with the ferro rod, you need some sort of fine kindling or tinder to grab that spark and turn it into a flame. Whereas with the matches and the lighter, you can go straight to the more rough kindling and get that and light it straight from the flame. Here you gotta coax this into a flame. Oh yeah, this is a magnesium block, and basically you shave off this little pile of magnesium that burns really hot, and then there's a ferro rod built into the top of this thing. I don't know if you can see it. You strike that, and it lights the magnesium, and then it lights, something into a flame. I'm not a big fan of these either. Getting that, you need like a quarter size pile of magnesium. It's a lot of work to get that off of there, and it's little fine magnesium things. So you're out in the woods and the wind's blowing, or you got it in some sort of nest, some sort of tinder bundle, and it's like falling through the cracks, and then it can be kind of hard to actually get it to ignite. So you're struggling with that, and you can bang it and knock your dust around. And I like the ferro rod with some sort of man-made tinder, as opposed to this combo. This is more old school, but it's legit people carry them, so it's just not my thing. Then I don't carry this in my fire kit, but it's fun to play with. This is a flint and steel. So you got the steel here, and I got a flint rock in here. You hit the steel, hold it in your hand, hit it with the flint, create some sparks, and nothing like you saw with the ferro rod, much less sparks coming out of there. So you need something even more delicate than what you would possibly need with the ferro rod to catch those sparks and ignite into flame. It still works. It's just much fewer sparks, and so you can take longer. You got to be a little more accurate with your sparks. And a magnifying glass. This is a great thing. All sorts of small magnifying glasses you can carry in your kit or part of your Swiss Army knife. These don't. It's okay if this gets wet. One problem is you need the sun. So if it's really crappy weather, hypothermia causing weather, and there's no sun, and all you have is your magnifying glass, well, sorry. So anyways, that's heat. Oxygen. You gotta have oxygen for fire to work. Really, that's mainly, I think, on the list because when you're making a fire, you gotta think about oxygen so that you have a mix of oxygen and fuel to turn into a fire. If your wood is too dense, your Tepee fire or your log cabin or whatever you're making as your fire lay, if it's too dense with wood and there's not enough open space in there for the oxygen to flow through, your fire's not going to go. So I think that's a big reason why they put oxygen on the list. But also, a way to help your fire is to get oxygen to it. So here's a thing called a pocket bellows that I carry in my fire kit. I try not to need it. I figure if I'm having to blow on my fire to get it to work, I'm doing something wrong. But if I need it and I'm struggling, and I want to have it. Also, this helps with like tool making. You know, if you're like burning a bowl or a spoon or something, this gives you some distance from the tool you're making and keeps you from inhaling so much smoke. You know, so you blow in this end and you get a really focused stream of air coming out of that end. Much more focused and like longer blow than if you're just using your mouth, and you get to stay farther from the fire. So this is great. Okay, so fuel. So there's like different thicknesses of fuel, right? You start little and you go big. Some of these methods need really fine kindling or tinder to get going. So tinder or fine kindling will light from an ember, will burst into flame from an ember. So like what the end of a cigarette looks like. You have something like that, you can turn it into a flame with fine kindling. With coarse kindling, you already need a flame, and it's like a matchstick type thickness, and it burns really readily from you get the fine kindling going, then you can light the coarse kindling. So fine kindling is harder to find in the woods. So in your fire kit, you should always, and I'm going to fine kindling and tinder, I'm going to use those words for the same thing. You should always have some sort of man-made tinder in your fire kit in case you can't find it in the woods, or it's really wet, or you just don't have time to look for it because you're in a serious situation. So poor man's or a scout's or an easy way to get some tinder in your fire kit is bring some cotton balls and Vaseline. Just the cotton ball will work, but the cotton ball plus Vaseline is a pretty awesome combination. And this is one cotton ball. I could definitely turn this into 2 fires or 4, especially with the Vaseline, so it can go a long ways. Here's a man-made version of basically that, and these are actually normally this long. I cut them because you don't need that much, so I made like a small little package that I could carry. This here is called char cloth. I don't carry this with me in my fire kit. This is what you use with a flint and steel. This will take a spark from a flint and steel and it'll turn it into a bigger ember that you can turn into a flame. This is a good skill to know, because if say you're in the woods and you're running out of materials, or you've lit a fire, you're good to go today, but you need to think about the fire you're going to make tomorrow. So what you do is you get some sort of cloth, you put it in a metal container, throw it in the fire, and it's like making charcoal, but it's char cloth. And now I've got a ton of material that I could light from the smallest of sparks. So I could take a rock and knock it against the back of a carbon steel knife, and I could get that going. A lot easier to do if you have something shedding very, very few sparks. This will work. It's harder to get some of the other stuff going. Regionally, we have different materials. Here's a really small piece of cedar bark or juniper bark. Out here in Texas, you take this and you rough it up and you turn it into a really fine stringy ball, and it's a great tinder bundle to use with a bow drill or some sort of ember and turn into a fire. This stuff's everywhere around where I live. It's not everywhere in the world. It seems like every region has its awesome tinder. Here's some birch bark. It's like papery bark. We don't have that around here where I'm from. This stuff is awesome fire making material. I just happen to have some. And I've gotten this to light from a ferro rod. Another man-made version, like similar to the cotton ball, is you can take this natural cordage and split it up into little fibers and make a little ball and get that going, and I'll do that in a minute. This is called fat wood. This is basically pine. It's saturated in the resin. It's like an injured part of the pine, and so it's like this solid sap-soaked piece of wood that kind of will burn like a candle. If you get it lit and you put this, say you're having trouble getting a fire going, but you can get this lit and you can put it inside your fire, it's going to burn for a long time and dry out the wood around it and just keep supplying this flame that'll get it going real good. So, fuel. So I kind of talked about some of the smaller stuff. Now when you make your fire, I kind of have 3 categories of wood here. Well, 4. Got the fine tinder, the fine kindling, the rough kindling, coarse kindling, and then the bigger pieces. So what you want to do is you want to go gather all your wood ahead of time and have it ready to go, sitting next to you so you can get your fire going. You don't want to get something like this lit and then run around and try and collect this. You already want to have this in a pile next to you. And you want to have more than you need. You want to have enough to make 2 or 4 fires sitting right next to you, because sometimes things go wrong. You got to start over. You got to add stuff. You know, it's better to have more and not need it than the opposite. So the first layer here is like, I go dental floss to pencil size. I think most people say pencil lead to pencil size. Got a good pile of that. I mean, if I held that chunk in my hands, it would be like, and I could light this straight with a match. I could just hold this up to a match and light it. The next level is pencil to thumb thickness. Okay, so once I get this lit, I use it to light this layer. And then the final layer is thumb to wrist size thickness. And honestly, that's all you need. You can just keep feeding your fire this all night. You could get cooking coals out of this. Or you could use this to light your bulk firewood. You know, your big logs, the ones you probably bought from the convenience store on your way to the campsite. Those, you don't always find those sitting around the woods, right? Usually when you find wood that big, it's like a huge log, like 5 feet, 6 feet long or longer, right? Well, you can always drag that to your fire. Just use your fire to cut it in half, and now you got 2 logs. Oh yeah, so then here's some, I didn't talk about this earlier. Here's some more natural tinder. This is some flower tops of some kind that I collected. Here's some grasses and dried grass and stalks and stuff that I found. So I can use this and this. Same way I can use this to make a nice tinder bundle that could light from an ember. All right, so that's the basics of fire making. Hope that wasn't too long. Hope you're still awake. Now let's actually light some stuff on fire.